I catch a lot of walleyes on jigs, and I catch a lot of walleyes on big jigs. One thing to remember though, that walleyes inhale their prey. So when they come up to a jig, they go to suck that jig in. They don't hit it like other predators like a northern or muskie or even bass. Walleyes are more of an inhaling feeder. And in turn is, a lot of times they may not be able to displace enough water to pull that jig through the water. But if you've got a stinger hook on that jig, the better off you're going to be. I'm going to show you how I tie a hair jig, and I'm also going to show you how I incorporate a stinger hook into that hair jig that will help you catch more fish. We've got our jig and our vise, and one of the things that my dad always used to say is, hurry up son, we're not building cabinets. So you know what? Lop on a bunch of thread there. I leave that hang. I'm going to usually trim everything for last. And now I'm ready to put on my stinger hook. This is the time that most people put on bucktail or fantasy fur. But what we're going to want to do for a stinger hook is it's pretty simple. To tie up a stinger hook, I use Berkley 10-pound XT. And some people use clear, some people use green. I prefer to use green. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that Berkley XT 10-pound test, and I'm just going to lop off a chunk of it and then tie on my stinger hook. In order to tie on my stinger hook, you can use a multitude of knots. I prefer to use an improved clinch knot because I feel that way it's a lot faster to tie. And again, when I'm tying jigs, speed and efficiency. I want to tie as many as possible, as quickly as possible. And that's why I use certain knots in the instances that I do. But to tie an improved clinch knot, you just do 7 wraps. And then you take that knot line and you go through the hole that you created, and then you go back through the hole that you created, and we'll wet it with a little bit of saliva, and then I've already got that jig tied up. And in most instances I can tie that small enough to where I don't have to trim off that tag end. But again, in this instance, when I'm done tying the jig, then I'm going to take care of all of my trimming at that point. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to place a knot about 3 inches above that stinger hook. And we're not talking about any fancy knot here. We're just talking about a simple granny knot, to where oftentimes I'll just make 1 or 2 little granny knots. There was a single. For emphasis, I'll do another granny knot. So now I've got that knot right there. That knot is actually going to stop that line from going back through there in case you get a big fish that pulls on that. Now I've used this knot and I've in situations where over $100,000 was on the line, and it's never let me down. But what I'm going to want to do is, once I place that upon there, and I'm going to put it about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch past my collar of my looping, I'm going to make about 15 to 20 loops there. Then I'm going to grab that line and fold that knot back past that thread, and then I'm going to make another 15 or 20 loops there. And now I've got my knot, or my stinger hook, tied into the jig. Now, if you really want to be cautious, now's the time where you can hit that with some super glue or some head cement. But what I'll do now is I'll just leave that just like that. In fact, you could even, if you want to throw in a couple simple little granny knots, you can do that too. And what I just simply do is just take that and just throw in a couple little safety knots in order to clamp that down on there. And now I'm ready to tie on my fur.